Why is the word fascist everywhere today? Politicians, professors, even your neighbor online. Everyone seems to be throwing it around. But here's the real question. Are these accusations accurate, or are they distorting one of history's darkest ideologies for political gain? In this video, we're going to break this down into 3 steps. First, what fascism actually means in academic terms. Second, how the label has been stretched and redefined throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. And finally, why figures like Charlie Kirk, despite accusations, don't actually fit the definition of fascist or far right, even if they are nationalists. Let's start with the basics. Political theorist Roger Griffin famously defined fascism as a palingenetic form of populist ultranationalism. That's a mouthful, but it basically means this. Fascism promises a kind of national rebirth through authoritarian rule and rigid identity politics. It's not just nationalism, it's not just traditional values. Fascism is a specific ideology that seeks to abolish democracy and concentrate power into the hands of a leader and the state. It thrives on ideas like blood and soil, the Nazi slogan that tied national belonging to race and land. So if you're picturing Mussolini's Italy or Hitler's Germany, that's fascism in its clearest form. Authoritarian, ultranationalist, and violently anti-democratic. So why are conservatives today, even mainstream ones, being branded with the same label? After World War II, Western cultures swung hard in the opposite direction. Anything that just smelled like cultural hierarchy, moral absolutism, or strong national identity was seen as dangerous, potentially the seeds of fascism. Philosopher Karl Popper argued this in his book, The Open Society and Its Enemies, warning that rigid truth claims could lead to authoritarianism. From then on, politics leaned towards moral relativism, multiculturalism, and globalization. By the 1990s, after the Cold War ended, this became the default worldview. George Bush Sr. even put it plainly in 1990. He said, "I see a world of open borders, open trade, and most importantly, open minds." This vision of globalization, what historian R.R. Reno called the Open Society Consensus, promised a borderless, secular, utopian future. But here's the problem. It didn't work out that way for everyone. First, economically, globalization dismantled manufacturing centers in the West. Many working class people lost stable, good-paying jobs. Wages stagnated even as GDP kept rising. In fact, an IMF report confirmed that globalization's wealth gains have been concentrated at the top, fueling inequality. Yeah, people got cheaper TVs and phones, but housing, groceries, and utilities became even harder to afford. Immigration. Immigration is usually welcomed when times are good, but numerous studies show that during downturns, support drops sharply. When the economy struggles, immigrants are often seen as competitors for scarce jobs and resources. And then there's culture. The decline of religion deepened the sense of dislocation. A Gallup data study shows that U.S. weekly church attendance dropped from 40% in the 1970s to about 20% today. Religion once anchored communities and values. The church literally sat at the center of the town square. With secular relativism replacing it, many feel that they no longer recognize their own communities. So, what happens when people lose belonging, purpose, and economic stability? They push back. This is why we're seeing a resurgence of nationalism and traditional values. It's not random, it's a reaction to decades of globalization and cultural relativism. But here's where the debate spirals. Critics argue that nationalism itself is just a stepping stone to fascism. Some even go so far to say that nationalism is fascism in disguise. But is that true? Or are we confusing democratic nationalism with authoritarian fascism? So let's look at Charlie Kirk. He's definitely a nationalist and a cultural traditionalist. But here's the difference. He operated firmly within democratic institutions. He advocated for free speech, pluralism, and open debate. The exact opposites of authoritarian suppression fascists were known for. Just think about it. Calling Charlie Kirk a fascist is like calling Franklin Delano Roosevelt a communist because the New Deal had state intervention. That's not how political categories work. Kirk, through Turning Points USA, pushed for free markets, limited government, and Christian values. In his book, The College Scam, he blasted universities for promoting relativism and eroding American traditions. At conferences, he doubled down on defending free speech against cancel culture, and he pushed back against what he called unchecked globalism. Compare that to actual fascist groups like Greece's Golden Dawn. They openly embraced neo-Nazi ideology, used street violence, and rejected democracy outright. In 2020, Greek courts literally declared them a criminal organization. That's fascism. Charlie Kirk's worldview may be conservative, but it's not authoritarian or anti-democratic. So why does this distinction matter? Why should we care if the word gets misused? Because words shape our politics. When we casually throw around the word fascist, two dangerous things happen. First, we water down the historical horror of real fascism, the regimes that murdered millions. Second, we shut down legitimate political debate by slapping extreme labels on people we disagree with. I've personally experienced this. Back in university in Canada, I defended some of Jordan Peterson's ideas about God and meaning. Some professors accused me of sympathizing with fascism. Just last week, I was called far right because I raised concerns about how gender and sexuality are being taught in elementary schools. These labels aren't just false, they're dangerous. They poison conversation and they make democratic disagreement almost impossible. Charlie Kirk was controversial, yes. He was provocative, sure. But he wasn't a fascist. He stood for free speech, public debate, and democratic pluralism. To call him or any mainstream conservative fascist is not only inaccurate, it's corrosive to liberal democracy itself, and it has dangerous consequences.